Hello everyone, you are watching Code with Vlad, and in this video we are going to finally understand ES modules. When JavaScript was born, applications were small and simple, so all the JavaScript code could be contained into one JavaScript file. This is not the case anymore. Applications are very complex and need to be split up into modules. To solve that problems, a lot of solutions were created, mainly CommonJS that uses require.js and ES6 modules. Today, Node.js codebases use CommonJS and ES6 modules in tandem, which can create a lot of confusion. So let's go ahead and solve it once and for all. So we have a file that uses CommonJS here and another one that will use ES6 modules. And of course, since we are using ES6, we need Babel and we need to have a script that will actually compile our ES6 files to the CommonJS format. And we also have a script called common to execute the CommonJS. All the code source will be of course available on GitHub in the description below. So the ES6 script will just compile of our files and output them to the this folder, while the common will just execute whatever is in this source folder. So let's go ahead and create our first CommonJS module. So we'll create a variable called name that will contain Bob and an age 42. And our goal is to export these values and import them into the index.js. So how are we going to do it? To do it in the CommonJS fashion, we need to use module object. So we attach a exports object to the module object, and that exports object will be available in index.js. So let's go ahead and console log the module and also import the CommonJS module in the index.js file so we can run the console log. I will drop into my terminal and run node, actually npm run common, since we have that programmed already. And here we go. We have console log the module. We see there's a lot of metadata that comes along and an export object. This is what will be available in the index.js, whatever we attach to it. So we can replace the exports object or we can add to it. It's really up to you. And to demonstrate that we're really attaching something to the exports object, let's log the module just after the attachment. And here we see that we have the object name and age attached to the export. So we can also attach it like that, like any normal JavaScript object, module.export.name, and we see that the name has been attached to the has been assigned to the export as a property. So let's go ahead and clean the file a bit. We don't need all those console logs, and let's just reassign the export object and import that CommonJS module into our index.js file thanks to the require, and let's log it. So that's how we import modules in CommonJS that uses require.js, right? Now to import a ES6 module, it's a bit different. First of all, we need to pass it through Babel, but let's go ahead and create a module, a ES6 module. So we can just, let's actually separate the code. So we have here the CommonJS, and we will have just below the ES6 module logic. And the way to import ES6 modules is to use import keyword, and we just define from where we want to import it. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into our ES6 library, and let's copy what we have in CommonJS and adapt it to ES6. First of all, if we want to export name and age, we can use named exports. So ES6 modules have name export and default exports. Name export is very easy. You just put export in front of the variable that you want to export, and that will export it as a named export. So you'll be able to get it by name or by age in the index.js file. So those are named exports. We can go ahead and import them like that. Just you put name and age in curly braces, and you'll be able to use it in your application. Let's console log them and run the Babel script. So npm run ES6, And it compiles. Let's make it a bit bigger. I just realized it's quite small. And we see that we got name and age from the ES6 module. So everything's working. We can also reassign a name to those variables with the keyword as. So name as n, for instance, and age as a. We just give it another name. Right, and let's go ahead and run the script again. It's working. Okay, now to the default export. You can only have one default export per module, but you can have as many named exports as you want. So we're going to go ahead and create a string as a default export. It can be any variable, but here it will be a string. And let's go ahead and import it into the index.js file. We can import it in several ways. Just to show you, here you can get it with default, but you need to name it. So default as D, for instance, and you can console log it as well. But usually that's not how you import a default. I'm going to show you in a minute how you usually import a default in a module. But for now, let's go ahead and run it and to see that it is working. So we really have a default named export. So let's go ahead and clean that and get it from there. So by default, if you put import and a variable name from something, it will try to get the default export. So it will not get the named export, only the default, right? And that creates a lot of confusion. And I think this is because people expect the import module from something to actually import everything. And that's not the case. If you want to import everything, usually what you would do is something import star as module from a module. So in that case, that would be import star as module. Here ES6 module, let's call it. And let's log that. And in that case, it will import the named export and the default export under the property name default. You are going to see it in a minute. So you see, it exports everything. So if you want to import everything like that, you need to use star. So I personally don't use default export that much, mainly a named export, because I like the variable names to be consistent. So you should not be able to rename them. So let's go ahead and clean that ES6 module. And here we go. Here is how you create ES6 modules compared to the common JS modules, and here's how you use it. And that's it for this tutorial. Please leave a like and a constructive comment. It will help me with the YouTube algorithm, and see you in the next video.